So we'll quickly dive in. Something I want to interestingly point out today, we discovered this in the conversation, is out of the 4 gentlemen on the panel today, 3 of them studied abroad and came back to India to build in India. Given the kind of context that we're living in today, it's incredible to see that happen, and I hope more and more people come back. So just a round of applause for the gentlemen here. All right, Shashi, we'll get started with you. So Shashi, you've spoken a lot about tech sovereignty. Would love to understand, just as opening remarks, how do we think about tech sovereignty, and how does that look like, especially within deep tech sovereignty for India? What do you think that means?
So before I start answering that question, I think 4 of us have come back. I didn't study abroad, but I still came back. So.
Fair.
So I mean, how do we think of sovereignty in the context of tech or even deep tech? I think the best way to understand it is look at what happened, 4 years back, right, when COVID hit us out of the blue. The entire world was, uncertainty. A lot of things that the government did in the years prior actually came to help, because you don't want to wait for a crisis to figure out that, you don't have control on certain elements within your, supply chain or, within your manufacturing sector and so on. The fact that the government took the steps to create a cashless economy with UPI became a huge godsend during COVID. Similarly, the fact that back in 2003, the government decided that we should have a free-to-air, direct-to-home television platform called DD Free Dish actually became very useful during COVID, because when the schools were shut, when a large part of the population didn't have computers at home, didn't have broadband access at home, you were able to deliver classrooms right into their homes through the television, right? So unless you have these sovereign platforms where you have control over it, when the situation changes, when the circumstances change, when the environment changes, you wouldn't want to then, start figuring this out. And today we are already seeing it with the kind of geopolitical environment that has emerged. There's a lot of uncertainty globally. The entire semiconductor supply chain is concentrated on one country. And that country is sort of, the center of focus for a lot of the geopolitical conversations. So that's a big, huge risk there. Similarly, with AI models, we've seen that there are deep biases. When you have a country which is as diverse culturally, socially as us, we don't want, fundamental technologies or foundational technologies carrying risks, carrying biases, that would create problems for us down the road. So sovereignty to us is not just merely about Swadeshi, it's not merely about building everything in India. It's also being prepared for what we can't foresee today for the crises of the future as well.
Interesting. So I'll take off from the semiconductor bit that you said. So we have Mr. Luthra with us. So Mr. Luthra, I'd love to understand from the semiconductor and electronics industry perspective, what do you sort of see as, where has India come from our journey of dependence, the days of the SCI in Chandigarh, to today what we're calling about self-reliance? There are about 18 projects that have recently been sanctioned. Where do you think we are now?
So definitely we are moving towards from being dependent to a self-reliant country. Recently, if you see, in the last month, we have had an event for Semicon, where about 30,000 participants actively participated into it. Honorable PM was the one who inaugurated the event. So there is a lot of traction happening into the semiconductor market. Talking about the 18 plants that you've just highlighted, we have Tata coming into the plant of packaging and also a fabrication plant. Another, we have a lot of private investment happening into this ecosystem, where partners like Keynes and the foreign partners are investing into Indian ecosystem. And there's a lot of foreign investment happening into the R&D.
So if I may ask, as a follow-up question to this, right, there's a lot of good stuff that's been happening, and that's very great and heartening to see in many ways. I'd love to see, what do you think, given the flux, given the dependence on singular countries on this, what can India do to position itself to be the choice for anybody setting up? We recently heard about the ARM thing as well. So would love your thoughts on that.
So what we have done in the last couple of years is something extraordinary. The policies that have been implemented, like India's semiconductor mission, design link incentive, these are something that has become groundbreaking. And that is why if you see, a lot of foreign investments have inflowed into the country with the high numbers. But there are some challenges. But these are small challenges like custom problems or custom regulations or some skill manpower. So I think with the time moving, we are changing into policies with, I think, the new policy of ISM 2.0. When that comes into play, I think that challenges will be sorted out. But I think we are on that road of changing from a dependent to a self-reliant country.
Interesting. So I'll come back to you specifically on what is one thing that you'd want us to change, especially with ISM2 coming in. But I'll shift focus now to another very critical area, which is AI. We have Rishi Bal with us, who was with Google Research earlier. Rishi, you head BharatGen, which is building a model for India. You folks are based out of IIT Bombay itself. You were at Google when the transformer revolution was happening in some ways back then. I'd love to understand from you, one, about what are the kind of challenges and opportunities that you're seeing in building something this foundational for India over the time that you've spent here, maybe contrasted with your experience earlier. Would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for that question. I think the challenges are enormous, but in terms of, in terms of data, in terms of talent, but the opportunity is also huge. And the good news for us is that everyone else around the world faces the same set of challenges, right? There's only a handful of countries that are producing the kind of talent that's needed to be able to produce these LLMs at scale. There's only a handful of countries that actually have sufficient data. So there's a shared set of challenges, and I feel like if we're able to solve for that set of challenges, we can not only be producing for India, but we could also be a global producer of AI and talent for AI.
So I'm curious to understand this here. Given our innovation pipeline, you're now on the academia side, you were on the industry side a little prior to this. Do you see more and more lab scale work translating into products today? Like, what has that looked like? And I would love, if you have any thoughts about, as you said, talent is a concern. How do we solve for that in some ways? Like, for example, from last year's International Mathematical Olympiad finalists, there are only, out of the 30 that made it from India, there are about 3 or 4 who continue to remain in India. What can we do to solve this?
So take BharatGen as an example of how we've approached this challenge. We, at the outset, recognized that talent was going to be an issue. So instead of just taking a purely academic route or a purely industrial route, what we've done is we've created a consortium. So we've created a Section 8 non-profit company which operates functionally like a regular company would. We have over 45 full-time employees. The company is growing. At the same time, we have over 7 academic partners. So we've tapped into the top IITs. We have IIT Bombay, Madras, Kanpur, Mandi, Hyderabad, IIT Hyderabad, IIM Indore. And that consortium continues to grow. And so what we've done is we've tapped the top talent in AI in India. We're continuing to bring on more people. And part of our approach here is it's not just about the professors and their labs, it's all of their students. So we have over 75 BTechs, MTechs, and PhDs that are interning at BharatGen alongside the engineering team. And what that does is it allows us to create talent at scale. And these people that are graduating and working with BharatGen will be part of that industry, but they're not just consumers of AI or application builders, they're actually creators of AI. And that's just one way in which sort of we're doing this. So I think going back to that larger opportunity, that partnership and the intersection between industry and academia is super important. And as part of that engagement, it's been really heartening to see the level of support that we've gotten from IIT Bombay and some of the other institutes in making available these faculty members. And so as we're able to drive and encourage this type of industry participation as part of how academia is evaluated or given an alternate route, right? Not just publications, but publication plus industry, very interesting things can happen at that intersection.
Interesting. And you mentioned that there are a lot of challenges that we face with the kind of AI work that we're doing in India as such. On the positive side, what could you tell us about what we are doing right that we should possibly double down on?
It's been incredible to see the level of support that we've received from across the country. It really starts with the government. So the Department of Science and Technology, which did the seed funding for BharatGen, it's a significant seed funding. And to see the India AI mission and Ministry of Information Technology pick up on that, right? And it's actually now a one government approach in terms of seeding the funding and then taking it through different TRL levels, right? That's been really heartening to see. It's been incredible to see how engaged the government has been in terms of understanding what the needs are in terms of building AI, and then making the commitment in terms of funding and support as well. So certainly a lot of things that we're doing right. Another big shout out is we are an enormous producer of talent, right? Having worked with some of the best at Google Research and other places, I have to say the graduating students I see at all of these IITs are second to none, right? And so what we need to do now is create that product pipeline that encourages innovation right here. So in addition to the work that we're doing in the services industry, having a larger product mindset and IP creation mindset right here in India.
Interesting. One of the things I'm hearing, because this used to be a common critique, that there's an overlapping of efforts across different government departments, but I heard you mention that DST, METI, and a host of departments came together to work with you guys. This isn't something I've heard so far. Would it be fair to say that different departments are working in concert together on focused, and like the kind of infighting that used to happen has tamped down significantly?
I can't speak to what used to happen, but
I have no idea either. Assuming.
But what I will speak to is sort of that positive one government approach that I'm experiencing, and that's one aspect. The other aspect is a genuine curiosity to understand what we need in the Indian AI ecosystem, and then be able to invest in different layers that are needed. It's not a one and done. We need people at every part of this AI ecosystem. We need people that play in data. We need the talent institutes that are actually churning out people. We need AI builders, model builders, fine-tuners, application builders, and all of that needs to come together.
Interesting. So on financing, as you said, and how that's become a lot more available, I want to come to Vivek on this. Vivek, you're the founder of Refi. You came back, decided to build defense tech in India in 2016-17, which is unheard of. We're almost a decade into the journey in many ways. So I'd love to hear from you, and given how sensitive defense innovation is, it's been at the forefront recently as well. What has your journey and experience been like since you came back, and then building this company over the last 6-7 years? What has that looked like? How have you seen things change?
So over the last 1 decade, we have seen a lot of things move and move very quickly.
Okay.
And especially in terms of how supportive the government and the user has been.
Okay.
So when we came back in, there was no vehicle to go and interact with the user, to start research, and you know the research starts with funding. And
of course.
So we were very lucky to see over the last 10-12 years what has happened is that the interaction with the user has increased. You get to know what you need to work on. So if you want to work on a product and you yourself think about that, hey, this is something which is going to work, it's most probably going to fail. So
most likely, yeah.
When you get to interact with the user, you get to see what the requirements are and hear from them directly. Then you are focused towards what needs to be developed. Second is there has been a lot of vehicles that have been created to fund research. Now, I want to say this and probably put a pressure on it, is that aerospace and defense is a place where jugaad doesn't work. Agreed. So I know there has been a lot of buzz about that we are good at jugaad, but this is where it doesn't work, and it needs research from ground up. So rather than working on the system itself, it takes a lot of effort to work on the subsystems, because even if one subsystem is unreliable, that can create an unreliable system itself. So we have seen a lot of movement towards funding of these basic subsystems, wherein the requirement comes directly from the user, and then you can get funds from the government allocated funds and work on these systems, and you get to integrate and see whether it works or not.
Interesting.
So that has been the major push. What I've not seen is the change in the mindset when it comes to private investments.
Okay.
So, research is hard, manufacturing is slightly harder, and mass manufacturing is at least 10x harder.
Agreed.
and what it needs as an input is a lot of money, which comes from the private investment, and it needs a lot of patience. Research needs patience, building mass manufacturing setup needs patience, and that is something still to be seen at a larger scale when it comes to private investment, where you support industry niche area at the system level, subsystem levels, wait for an output, let them do research, come up with the state-of-the-art or even crossing the state-of-the-art research and manufacturing setup to move forward.
No, I absolutely agree with you. It's a glaring stat on R&D funding where 70% of the R&D spend in India is all government spend and only 30% is private sector. While if you compare it to a South Korea, the ratio is reversed. It's almost 80% is private sector investing. So I wish that happens. I agree with you. I hope for the same as well. Which leads to an interesting question around like how institutional mandates can be created to try and do something like this. And Shashi, you're the expert on this. We've heard of the in-space model about how they were fundamentally a regulator and a promoter for the industry. And it's sort of, in many ways, I haven't heard of a model like this globally anywhere. It's reaped a lot for India's space industry. What do you think are other things that we can do? Are there other institutional mechanisms we can create? What are thoughts about it?
I think great question. In fact, I'll take off from where he just pointed out. It requires a lot of patience. Right, unless you have patient capital, we're not going to make significant breakthrough progress in the deep tech areas, be it AI, be it semiconductors, be it quantum, and so on. I think space and drone are two examples where government intervention has made a substantial difference, and it's tangible. We can see it, right? Be it the in-space model that you brought out, or the drone example. What has happened, at least in the last 2-3 years, right? The government has put significant money on the table, be it with the NRF, be it now with this new Research and Development Innovation Fund, be it with the India AI mission. I think it is something that Rishi didn't say out loud enough, that BharatGen is a big bet that the government has made. Right? It is, in fact, I would call it, India's Manhattan project for AI. Right? So the government has made that big step. What about the private sector? And I think that's a big question. Maybe it is understandable that an individual private enterprise in India may find it too risky. That is, understandable. What if you come together as a group, as a consortium, or as an industry, and then, participate in these, high-tech, high-risk research projects, right? So I think we need an innovative model here, where,
Interesting.
For example, I'll give you one example from the broadcasting industry because I've been involved in that. There is, this entity called BARC, which does television ratings. And what is unique about BARC is that it is actually 3 industry bodies that have come together to create it. So understandable there are issues with it. Understandable there are differences of opinion across, each stakeholder. But at least what is unique is that what any one industry could not do, all of them came together and did, right? What if we could do something similar for some of these other deep tech areas? So that is perhaps one way of looking at it. But I think coming back to government itself, I think what Rishi pointed out and what you were highlighting, have the silos come down? I think they've come down in a decent way. But a lot more can be done on that. I think a lot more can be done by, looking at international best practices. For example, how DARPA does it, right? How do we create, mission mode dedicated program managers who take these high-risk projects all the way through their life cycle, handhold them. Because I think handholding is a very important thing in a country where you have a spaghetti of rules, you have GFR, you have audits, you have all sorts of barriers, right? And these barriers will not go away overnight, even if, the Prime Minister is after your life, which is probably why, the drone projects have moved or the space projects have moved. But for everything else, right, you can't expect one individual, top down to push everything, right? So one way to solve that is to have these mission mode program managers who understand these risks, who understand these barriers, and are able to, handhold these deep tech projects all through their life cycle. I think once that happens, I think we will see significant progress on all these areas.
No, I think that's a very interesting thought process, that having these mission mode program managers, I'm going to use that somewhere else, on this. This is interesting. I'd love to hear from the semiconductor electronics industry as such. What would a mission mode program manager like this look like for you guys? What do you think you'd want? And this is the original question where I came back to, in the next 12 months, for example, if there'd be one man ki murad that you may have, what would it be?
So there has been a lot of investments, right, in the last couple of years. What has happened is that we need to really understand the ecosystem of semiconductor. The business of investing into manufacturing of semiconductor is highly capital intensive. It is not a short-term capital yield project. The bare minimum investment of even a packaging plant start from a couple of 100 crores.
Agreed.
So when we have these mission enablers, this will really help the private investors to get these results out in the long term.
Okay.
And success rate can be much higher.
Okay.
What I also think that right now the pool that we have, the think pool, what I call is, we have one of the highest designers all over the world. We have 20% of the manpower for designers that are invested throughout the world.
Agreed.
If we can design semiconductors, we can manufacture it beautifully, and the results can be outstanding. What we really need is the will to do it. We have the will to do it now, and in the next couple of years, we'll see that India is just not a designer, it'll be a manufacturer of semiconductor, and the biggest one.
Well, fingers crossed for that. Hope that happens. So, Vivek, coming back to investments in this space, you're the founder on the table with us, as is Rishi, as is all of us. But help me understand, when you think about investment models for this space, building subsystems, etc., what could be things that we could try out that would help? Like, what is something that you would have wanted when you came back in 2016, 17, and a bunch of it is there now, that you would have said, if this was there, that'd be interesting, or if for the investors in the room or investors watching, what could we do that would be helpful?
See, what we missed the most was when we came back from the US, doing research in the US costs at least 1/10 the cost here. Because you have labs set up, you have skilled people available.
Okay.
Now, if I want to say do a research on composites or alloys,
Okay.
right? For me to be able to do that, I have to get the whole infrastructure setup done, hire people, learn the machine myself, then train the people on those machines, and then start the research. So both in terms of cost and opportunity cost,
Okay.
it's a huge investment. Now, what, which I keep on saying everywhere, what the wish is that we establish a strong research and manufacturing ecosystem, not only for defense and aerospace, but for the other industries as well, wherein whenever you want to surpass the state of the art, it doesn't have to take an individual to do a whole lot of investment and spend a lot of time in training people to be able to do that.
Interesting. And since, as Rishi was also saying, you folks train a lot of talent here and try and do that and bring them up to speed. But as Vivek said, it takes a certain amount of time, a certain amount of cost, etc. What could be other ways we could short-circuit this? Are there other thoughts about this? For example, China very famously had the 1,000 Feathers program where they dedicatedly brought talent back in a focused manner over decades, in many ways as such. So any thoughts about what we could do from both of you? Vivek and Rishi.
See, do you want to start? Okay, oh, sorry. Yeah. So we recently went to US and sponsored a IEEE event.
Okay.
And I was happy and surprised at the same time to see that I met with around 150 Indian professors.
Wow.
And students who really, really want to come back.
Okay.
But the problem is that if you bring people back and you don't give the same amount of, same quality of work that they get there, that's the challenge. Money is not of a big challenge. But
Nice.
Then this is where we need to invest more towards doing a lot of basic research, working on alloys, working on metals, working on magnets, and bring people back in to do quality research.
Okay.
And give them that work. And I know, like us, a lot of people are sitting there waiting for an opportunity to come back.
To come back. Okay. And Rishi.
Yeah, maybe I'll add in a few things. Thanks for that. At BharatGen, we're building what is India's sovereign AI program. And so we think about AI not just in the context of what we're building, but what is the larger ecosystem and how do we grow that ecosystem to be successful. And one of the things we see as we look around the world is there's two patterns that have emerged in AI. There's the American pattern, which is largely private sector funded, and that comes from funding from profit sources in other areas that then subsidize model creation. That's your Microsoft, Meta, Google, Amazon. And then there's the private sector VC sovereign fund funding that's going to companies like OpenAI. There's the other model in China, which offers government funding, and then it also offers a closed ecosystem where startups and companies can continue to thrive. Now, the environment in which we are building AI is one where government-funded entities are dropping trillion parameter models that have been built with a subsidy elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so if we want to grow our AI ecosystem, we have to find ways of nurturing it. And that nurture, you have to create some kind of area where the AI ecosystem can be incubated and actually given a chance to actually grow with the significant funding. We talked about, access to labs, we talk about access to talent, but it's going to need an incubation environment. And I also think we have to think deeply about policy and incentives so that there's encouragement for Indian players to work durably with the Indian AI ecosystem going forward. Otherwise, the sheer sort of force of money, is going to be very hard to compete with people that are subsidized in other sources when we don't have an ecosystem that allows for that growth.
Fair. Gentlemen, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for your time and all your insights. A big round of applause to the folks here. Thank you for being patient listeners as well.